is up, everybody? Sven Diesel here. We're going to be tying up the balanced Simi Leech. The reason we call it that is it's a leech pattern. It's balanced, and we're using Simi Seal by Arizona. So that's why we call it that. So we're going to start with a Moonlit ML056. This is a size 8. It's in the vise, and we're going to go ahead and use some wax thread by Semperfli. This is an 8/0. I like to use a little bit heavier of a thread for this because we're going to be attaching a embroidery pin to it, and I want to make sure it's strong. So go ahead and start with getting a nice thread base down your shank, and then work your thread back up to the bend of the eye, and we'll go ahead and cut out our tag end. Now for this, we're going to be using a number 17 embroidery pin. It's about 1.25 inches, I believe. Purchased it at Joann's, and we've got a tungsten bead. This is a size 5/32 because I want it to get down. But now you can see you've got options here on placement of this. I'm going to have it more balanced for in the water, and the way I do that is basically I have about a eye gap distance between the bend, the same size as the bead itself. And you can see from a previous video, as it's air balanced on the left, it kind of rides at an angle, whereas water balanced, the hook's slightly at an angle when it's air balanced. So the one on the left is air balanced, the one on the right is water balanced. Perfect. So that's how I kind of do mine now. But either way we'll catch fish. So I've got it in position so that I've got about a tungsten bead between the bend and the bead, and that's just eyeballing it. You can be exact if you want and take it off and measure the angle, but I get a few thread wraps down that to secure it, and then I'll go ahead and put a little Zap-A-Gap on. I prefer to do this in the brush because, well, normally you don't get a clump on there. That's how I usually do it when I grab from the bottle, but I just got a new bottle of Zap-A-Gap, so I guess I came out a little heavy there. So we'll just go ahead and try and tie that in and utilize as much of that glue as possible. This one's going to be super durable. So that's a prime example of how to do that when you get too much glue, and then I sometimes just wipe it with my finger. But you can go ahead and wrap over it a couple times. Make sure that doesn't drop on your nice tying bench if you have one. But there we go. Now we got our excess off with our finger. So I'm going to end here, and we're going to be using for the tail, this is some premium Bugaboo by Nature Spirit, and I want the lighter color to be on the bottom, and this ride's inverted, so you kind of got to have your thought process right, and I usually have to double and triple check myself on this. So we're going to go ahead and basically take that feather, and hopefully you still don't have glue on your hands, but I'm going to just take about 1.5 inches here with my thumb, and I'm just going to rip it off right off the stem. And then it doesn't need to be perfectly aligned with the tips because that's going to form our taper, but you want to keep it generally aligned because those feathers somewhat are tapered as is. So we'll just snip off the butt ends there, and if you notice, the embroidery pin ended before the bend of the hook, and that now we're going to use to place this marabou right there in that gap, and that will basically help us to create an even body. So we're filling that with this marabou now, and we've got the darker color first because we want the lighter color to ride on the bottom. So look at that nice tail. This premium Bugaboo stuff's awesome. And so now we're going to be doing the same thing with the lighter color, and you can see this is what the quadruple check on making sure I've got the lighter color on the bottom. I can't tell you how many times I've tied it and I get done and I'm like, oh crap, wrong way. So anyway, same process, rip a little bit off, just right off the stem, and we'll just cut off the butt ends, and we'll just align it a little bit shorter than our previous strands there, because I want this to just be a hint of a lighter color. And we'll go ahead and secure that in, and now really do some cranking, securing wraps back to the bend and kind of clean that up a bit. So step 1 done. Look at that. That is just, when that gets wet, that is just going to be a sweet taper, but it also looks amazing dry. So I love that premium Bugaboo. It's like you get a perfect feather every time. So let's go ahead and we're going to tie in some flash. I'm just going to tie it on each side, similar to like a lateral line. And then sometimes when you tie it, it wraps over and goes on top. But basically we've got 2 to 3 strands, and I want it to go somewhat down the sides so that we got flash on each side, because this crystal flash reflects, really well in the water. So something to get attention and something to spark interest in it. And we'll go ahead and secure that all the way up the shank and work our way back to the tail now. And we are almost done with this fly. We just got to trim those out just a little bit longer than our longest fibers. And now we're going to make ourselves a really nice dub loop. But look at that. Man, that's almost that body's almost perfect there. I got a little bit extra bulk on the tail, but you know, we're not drawing on our flaws. We're hopefully the fish won't notice. So I basically am making a dub loop about 3 inches, 3.5 inches, whatever's easiest for you to work with, and we'll get our thread up behind the tungsten bead. And I'm going to use my Stonfo dub loop tool. I love this thing. It's got some nice weight to it. I'll insert the thread into it, and now we're going to be using Arizona Mega Simi Seal dubbing, and I believe this is, I think it's not dark olive. Anyway, we're using this color. It's like a golden olive. It's got hints of blue in it, and I'm just going to grab out a nice chunk of it. I love these Mega on the Simi Seal because they just really add to the taper of the overall bug, and you can put them in a real nice dubbing loop and get them secure. And we're doing a double thread here, meaning I'm not splitting the thread because I want it to be ultra durable. And that's why we did I guess you'd call it a double thread dubbing loop, because we didn't split it. But we'll go ahead and put that in, spread it out, and start zipping it up. You can go as fast or as slow as you want. The faster you go, the more it kind of clumps, but we're going to be brushing it out so it really brushes out nice. And you're gonna lose about, shoot, I don't know. I always feel like I get some in the Velcro when brushing these out, but I feel like they're still ultra secure. And what I'll do is I'll just take that little bit I have right there, pull it out, sit it right here, because I'm going to use that up near the head just to kind of add a little bit of a cleaner head. So before I go down, I like to double super glue. Now I'm using Gorilla Glue, just laying a little bit down. And what this does is this is going to help secure those fibers in the dub loop. And as long as I'm preening back, I'm not trapping too many fibers. And as I wrap forward, I'm just kind of making sure, looking at the little dub loop brush I made, you know, you're going to have some thinner and some thicker parts. And I want to make sure that if I get a nice thick clump, I space out my wrap a little bit more. And if I'm a little bit thinner, I can do more touching wraps. And as I get up towards the eye, I'm going to judge it, you know, basically, you can see I could have used a little bit longer of a dubbing loop, more material in the dub loop, sorry. And I'm just going to do a few real tight securing wraps now, and I'll tie this off and go ahead and snip this out once I've secured it with 2 securing wraps behind, and we are good to go. So I'm going to take that little bit of extra dubbing I pulled off my brush, and I'm just going to noodle it on here instead of do a dub loop, just because there's not that much, and I'm going to brush it out anyway. But hopefully you judged yours right and can basically finish with your dub loop. But I'm just going to do a few more wraps here, and that looks pretty nice and thick right there. And we'll go ahead and do 2-3 real tight wraps right in front of everything, and then I will now whip finish this. And we are pretty much done. We just got to brush it out. So 3-turn whip finish, and I'll probably do 2 of them just to add to the security and durability of this. And I don't really want that material I just noodled on to come off. And so there we go. Snip out our thread and grab our trusty Stonfo brush with the Velcro. And because we did 2-thread dub loop, I can be super aggressive on this. And what I'm looking for when I'm brushing this is any ultra thick spot, because when this gets wet, that thick spot will look different potentially. And so I just want to make sure it's nice and even, and the more you brush it, the more these fibers come out, and the more it tapers into that tail and adds to the flowiness and bugginess. And just, you can be ultra aggressive on this. So unless you're using like a wire brush, but I've even used wire brushes on this. So there you go. That's pretty much the balanced Simi Seal Leech. I fish these in olives, blacks, purples, whites, and do really well with them. This time of year, I like putting the orange bead on, kind of like an egg-sucking leech, but tie some up in your favorite colors, fish them on the still water, fish them on the river, and hopefully they pierce some lips.